Welcome back. It is the aftermath of the Chiefs-Raiders game as they look forward to the Bills. Matt Derrick is here filling us in on everything that we have to take a look at with this team as they have a short week now to get ready. We're going to do that now on Locked On Chiefs.
From the land of the free and the home of the Chiefs, this is the Locked On Chiefs podcast.
Welcome back, friends and neighbors. I know it's been a short turnaround since this Monday night game, but thanks for making us your first listen. Check out the Draft Show for another listen. We're free every day on every platform, everywhere. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network. This is Matt Derrick from ChiefsDigest.com. You can find his work there, and I think you need to because I'm a little fuzzy on some of the details last night. It was a long evening. I'm Ryan Tracy, the founder of Rogue Analytics and Performance Consulting, RGR Football, NFL 33, and I'm sure there's something else out there. But 12 hours removed, not 24 like we usually do, Matt. The substance of this game kind of has a little bit of a different feel for me. Yes, there's frustrations. Yes, the ball game was tough battle back and forth. But in the end, it feels like this is a divisional game that you got to win on a tough opponent that, honestly, all these games are tough in the AFC West. Does this win look better today than it did last night?
I think you could probably read into it a little bit of what you want. If you want to be glass half empty, you can say, hey, the Chiefs got themselves into a dogfight and barely escaped. Against a team maybe it's 500, and that could be a warning sign for the future. But I think there's probably a lot of other positives to take from it, namely that the Chiefs showed up on a night when I don't think that they brought their A game. I know that they didn't bring their A energy. And I think this is about the best that the Raiders can play. You took their best shot and you still won the game. So I think that's a big takeaway. I think Mahomes had a pretty good message, to his team that he shared after the game, which was that, there are games that you learn about yourselves and define your team and your character. And this is probably one of them, to be able to dig your way out when you took a team's best punch, physically and maybe metaphorically, and you're able to survive. And I think that's what will be the lesson of this game. I mean, we'll see if this team struggles down the road. Maybe we'll point to this as being another indicator like the Colts game of saying this was a sign of things to come. But I think it's more likely the other side of this, that this team's going to be better for this game.
I kind of think that too. And there's a number of issues. We'll talk about some of the more drastic ones later in the show. But for right now, really the tale of two coins, like you said, you can look at it either way. I think people will find a way to take away from this game in certain aspects. I'm going to refute some of that here in a second. But your thought at the end, when it's all said and done with this ball game, it was Patrick Mahomes keeping the ball protected, not putting it in harm's way, didn't throw an interception at all. And it was Travis Kelce doing elite, epic Travis Kelce things. Should we take that away that, oh, no, this is boiling down to a lot of what it boiled down to last season in terms of the offensive output?
Now, to me, I think a difference against the Raiders than we saw, especially at times last year, was that I think this is one of the more disciplined games that we've seen from Patrick Mahomes when he has had both the deep ball taken from him and he's had Travis Kelce taken away from him in the middle of the field. The Raiders did a great job between, say, the Chiefs goal line and their own 10 of taking Travis Kelce out of this ball game. And yet Mahomes was still able to move the football. He was still able to find other targets. He spread the ball around. Most importantly, I don't think he took any, unnecessary shots downfield that weren't open. I mean, he did a really good job of spreading the ball around to, if not open receivers, then at least into windows that he felt comfortable with, that I don't feel like that there was anything that he was really forcing. And that's what you got to do. When teams are rushing forward, they're dropping 7, they're going to try and take away the deep ball and take away Kelce. That's what's open. That's what's there, is just finding the pockets underneath. And I think he did a really good job of that, was very effective. And then, I mean, obviously you capitalize on the red zone and the end zone when you get a chance to. And Kelce made the Raiders pay for not giving him the same attention at the end zone as they did in the middle of the field.
I think a lot is said along that vein, 72% completion percentage. That goes a very long way. But in forcing other players to step up, I thought we got, again, a little yin and a little yang there. I came away feeling better about Marquez than I had previously. I felt like he definitely stood up. I felt like he was attacking his defender, especially in man, with the ability to break his routes a little bit cleaner. I thought he was more polished in that era. Do you have the same takeaway for him in particular?
I thought based on everything that we've seen from Marquez since OTAs and through training camp, this was almost the quintessential game that I expected from MVS going into this season. That, I felt like he was going to have a pretty good rapport with Mahomes, that he had an ability to do some things underneath that he really hadn't proven before. He'd shown the ability to find the open pockets when he needs to, and to be able to sit down and really in some of the zones that the Chiefs were going to face, find those weaknesses and have a relationship and a building chemistry with Mahomes, which I think is there. And it's just a matter of really maybe the whole rhythm of the offense and just a few things, kinks of being worked out. All those things, along with the quintessential drop that at some point is going to drive you crazy with MVS. But other than that, I mean, like I said, I think this is exactly what, as Chiefs fans, I think you would have had to expect based on what we saw in the offseason and hope for. I mean, 90 yards, I think 6 catches, pretty productive. That to me is plenty out of MVS. If you get that every week, take it to the bank.
Yeah, especially at 75% completion percentage to him. So there was the drop. There was one other ball not catchable. He came out of this unscathed, or at least physically in good shape. You can't say that for the other two starters, quote unquote. Juju Smith-Schuster obviously had some issues last week. I think that limited him, but I actually was pretty happy with his output despite that. And then Mecole Hardman again with the heel issue, yet he put up 73 yards on the evening on 4 catches. Like, that tells me that you don't have to have one guy that does it all. By having those 3 and Travis, it is working out in week 5 here. Maybe like we had hoped it would happen earlier, where you can distribute the ball and everybody can contribute to the yardage for the day.
Yeah, and you're right. I mean, with Mecole, that's something that we just haven't been seeing a lot, I think, because of that heel, and he's still not completely 100% comfortable with that heel. I think you saw it again last night. He limped off the field a couple of times when I think you could see that it was bothering him. But you just, again, I think you see the importance of having Mecole out there and his ability to make some plays. I mean, not only with those catches, I mean, he had some good chunk yardage and he had the 36-yard play, but I think there was a couple of first downs in there too. That was key. I mean, being able to move the chains. And I think there was even at least 1 or 2 on third down. And that's something that the Chiefs were pretty effective with last night. They were 7 of 12 on third downs, and they did it in a variety of different ways. So I felt like this offense, even though there was a slow start for sure, and it took a while before they got into rhythm, and they had to kind of mix things up a little bit. I mean, bringing Jerick McKinnon in and going with him when it was a little bit tough sledding for Clyde, Mahomes making the adjustments, the offensive line making the adjustments that they needed. You saw them turn on a dime and make those changes. And once they did, that offense went on a pretty good roll.
Adjustments. I want to delve farther into that on the backside of this, because first, it does go a long way in being able to make those adjustments in the middle of the ball game. And now a word from our sponsor, BetterHelp. For them, making adjustments on the fly, being able to concentrate when you're in the midst of something frustrating like that is something that not everybody has innately in them. Sometimes you need a little help getting there, and that's where therapy comes in. You can talk about your personal experience, whatever's going on in your life, with a therapist that is there to help you. It makes things very, very easy to get it off your chest and get the help that you need. If you're thinking about trying therapy, BetterHelp is a great option because it's convenient, it's accessible everywhere, it's affordable, and it's entirely online. You get matched with a therapist after filling out a brief survey, and you can switch therapists at any time. It helps unload stress, helps you get through those anxious moments, those frustrating moments, which I think we might have seen in that ball game last night. All you have to do to find a better way to be a problem solver and get the therapy that you need is to visit BetterHelp.com/lockedon. And today you get 10% off of your first month. It's that easy. It's BetterHelp.com/lockedon and get 10% off of your first month. Now, adjustments are part of the game. They always are. This staff, particularly on the defensive side, has been a little bit slow in recent years. I felt like the last 2 ball games in particular last night, foremost, they were able to spin, like you said, on a dime and make that adjustment. For me, the number one adjustment they made is just simplifying, getting the ball out faster to start the second half, building on what they had gone into halftime with. And I felt that was really the bottom line, the overall thing that Patrick was talking about in finding out who you are. Can you do that and be more pliable instantly? when you have to like go with what you're getting. Is there more to it than that, or is it just as simple as being flexible?
I think that's a big part of it. I mean, you've got to be able to adapt and change to your surroundings and the environment that you're in. And not that Steve Spagnuolo hasn't been that way, but in the past, but I tell you what, I mean, I feel like that they are faster with that since the addition of Joe Cullen as the defensive line coach. And a lot of that starts up front. And let's face it, I mean, I think last night everything started up front for the most part. The reason the Chiefs were behind 17-0 and 20-10 at halftime was because they lost the line of scrimmage on both sides of the football in the first half. They weren't protecting Patrick Mahomes very well, and they couldn't get any pressure on Derek Carr whatsoever. He had all the time in the world to throw in that first half. And you saw them make the changes on both sides of the football. So they were able to get Mahomes more protection in the second half. They were getting rid of the ball quicker. They were doing those things that they need to do. But most importantly, they made those changes on the fly on the defensive side too, as far as getting a little bit more pressure on Carr, changing things up. They did a better job, I thought, at least in the second half as the game went on against the run. But that's still going to be, I think, a work in progress, especially with some of the injuries and the issues that they've got right now in the front seven.
When this team does come back, I think there are a couple things they have to continue to pick up on. That has to be a staple in my opinion. Outside of the first 15, you have to be able to go to that quick game when you need to have it. And I think that comes back to the play design. And I hope that what we see here is that Andy's realizing you're going to get similarities, whether it is pass rush that's getting around the tackles or whether it's trying to take away the deep. You have to have that aspect in the game plan each week in case you need that. A lot of times you're going to, maybe sometimes you won't. But in balancing that fact, what can you do to help the tackles in particular? I think that's got to be the next step. I don't see free agency as an option with $480K available. So is it more about just hitting that tempo passing and getting the ball gone? Is it more chips? How do you see the tackle role, especially this next week against Buffalo, coming through?
Yeah, I mean, that's just one of the realities that I think the Chiefs are going to have to deal with. And this is, I don't even think it's necessarily a knock on either one of their tackles. It's just the reality of the division that they're in and some of the teams on their schedule that they're going to face elite pass rushers almost week in and week out. That's just kind of a bad luck of the draw to a degree, but it's also, at least in the AFC West, an acceptance that teams realize that they've got to be able to get pressure with 4 on Mahomes or they're going to get toasted all the time. So that's probably going to be a reality of going forward, that everybody in the AFC West is going to try to have at least a couple of pass rushers all the time. And you've got to be able to adapt to that and adjust to that. That was the only thing that kind of surprised me, was that out of the go, the Chiefs they wanted to see what they could get away with as far as, only protecting with 5. That wasn't the approach they took against Tampa Bay. I mean, against the Bucs, from the very beginning, they were providing some support to those guys on the outside. They against the Raiders, they let it ride. They wanted to see if Brown and Wiley could handle Chandler Jones and Max Crosby one-on-one, and turned out they needed some help. They needed to be able to slow those guys down. I was just surprised they didn't do that out of the box. We know this team can and is willing to do that. Yeah, I mean, it's going to affect the way that you can, deploy patterns. If a tight end needs a chip before they go out into a route, or you need to keep a running back in, yeah, I mean, it's going to affect what's available downfield. But I think that goes back to the getting the football out quickly, the decision-making process of Mahomes, staying within the framework of the offense. Because again, I go back to it. I know how much Patrick Mahomes and Chiefs fans want to push the ball downfield. I know how exciting the 3-play, 75-yard drives with a 58-yard touchdown is. But once again, this offense gets into its mindset to go 11 plays and 75 yards. Who stops them? Because nobody does.
And it's got to be constantly reminded. I don't think that's on Patrick or Andy. I think that's the staff as a whole. Like, again, to use the Ferrari metaphor, it's idling. And you know that you can just step on it and go when you have to. You get yourself into trouble that way when you don't just take it easy and move through the gears nice and smooth and get to that point. Is there a way, anything in the outcome of this game can hammer that home anymore? Is it really just about the discipline of the staff and the quarterback keeping it where it needs to be?
That, I mean, I felt for a while now that the just self-discipline and playing within themselves is the biggest obstacle that this Chiefs offense has. That if they stick to game plans and don't try and take, and sometimes even the game plans, I mean, have been, I think, flawed from the beginning. If the game plan is to try and put down a team early and try and hit the big plays, because that's the one thing that we know everybody is trying to take away from this offense. So I know everybody's tired of hearing my metaphor, but it goes back to if you eat your vegetables long enough, you know what? That cheat day is going to be pretty fun. You're going to be able to do that. And at some point this season, the Chiefs are going to absolutely toast somebody that has fallen into complacency, that's going to throw a single high look at Mahomes, and because he has been beating them underneath, they're going to let down their guard and he's going to hurt them. That's what you want to do. I mean, that's the strategy. That's what you got to, play for. This Andy Reid is one of the most strategic coaches around, and he does a really great job of building up game plans so that you can do exactly that. It just always puzzles me that every once in a while they get out of that and decide that they want to take the Ferrari out for a spin when they're in stop and go traffic.
Yeah. Okay. So at least we're seeing it the same way. It's about the guy with the keys. We're going to get back to that because I'm going to expand on something that you said first. Got to tell you about our friends over at BetOnline. When you need to get into the action, BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to check all your betting information for all your betting needs. Find all your favorite sports and events at the #1 source for all the odds, lines, games, and everything you need to get your money on the line in a smart way that gets you ready for whatever season you're looking for, whether it's this football season, could be baseball, NFL, NHL, NBA, even the golf and the combat sports are there at BetOnline. It continues to be the top resource for all of your sports wagering information, your live in-game betting, podcasts, scores, everything that you need to get covered. Head over there to BetOnline. It's easy to get to their website from any device, including your phone. It's BetOnline, where the game starts. Now, adjustments are just as important on the defensive side. And I don't want to skip over this game against the Raiders because it is such a division rivalry. But you have Josh Allen this coming week. And there's no way to get away from that. And so we might as well start now. I felt like the defense adjusting the blitz a little bit. Certainly, I feel like the linebackers have been playing at a higher level than we expected, given that one of their starters is out. Willie Gay is on the horizon. I don't know that there's enough to say that you feel good about it right now where it is. So adjustment's going to be key in defending Josh Allen. Do you think what we've seen from this team the last two ball games in being a little bit more pliable to the opponent's attack is prepared to cover that without Turk Wharton, without Willie Gay? Are they able to keep up and give a defense that gives Josh Allen some trouble?
Yeah, this is going to be, to me, the first real test of this defense this year. Not that they haven't faced some good offenses and been challenged. I mean, certainly the Raiders did that. I mean, they have had some good opportunities to test themselves against some quarterbacks. But to me, I mean, this is going to be the best quarterback they faced. It's going to be the best offense that they've faced. And it's going to be a team that knows them pretty well and knows how to beat them, most importantly, and feels like they can beat them. I mean, the Bills are coming in. They've got this game circled. I mean, you're getting the Bills' best effort. You're getting everything on that offensive side. And we know what Josh Allen has done to this team. I mean, he's had a tremendous amount of success in the past. I'm really intrigued to see if, one, the changes that the Chiefs have made up front, especially with what Joe Cullen is doing with the defensive line, what Spags has been doing as far as mixing up the blitzes and doing some different things, how that's going to work out. But most importantly, I mean, just the speed upgrade and the quickness with which this defense reacts. I mean, that's the difference between this team and last year. This is not the same Chiefs defense that Josh Allen has picked apart in the past. There are some differences. And I'm intrigued to see, because I feel like this is the kind of game that the Chiefs have built their defense to counter. They knew, with what Buffalo did to them in the regular season last year and the track meet that they had with them in the postseason, they had to have more speed to be able to keep up with Buffalo. And this is the game to find out if that has worked, if they are there. I mean, I'm expecting a track meet out of this, but if the Chiefs win this because of their defense, it's going to be because they had the speed to keep up with Buffalo and the quickness to keep them from getting into gear.
And that's where my concern is, especially in the secondary. I feel like the front seven is going to be okay, whether they bring up Shelton or whatever they're going to do at the tackle spot. Now, the Turk Wharton has torn his ACL, and folks, if you missed that post game, we did find that out. So there has to be some kind of call up on the defensive line group. But it's the secondary that I think is more challenging. Khalil Shakir, the rookie in Buffalo, who I wanted to see here in Kansas City, had a kind of a coming out last week. And so I think you have another legitimate weapon there now. The question becomes, can this young secondary be able to display that speed and that quickness enough to make the difference? Because I think they're going to get tested long and hard. I don't think that this is going to be a game plan that the Bills come in and say, we want to run down their throats. I think they do feel there's susceptibility there. If there was ever a game that you were going to take L'Jarius Sneed and have him follow someone all game long, it was Devontae Adams. I don't know that Stephon Diggs demands that kind of coverage, but what's the best approach to what I think is a more potent passing game in Buffalo than it was in Las Vegas for this Chiefs secondary?
Yeah, that's a good question, because the Chiefs haven't done that as far as trying to limit the matchups that Jalen Watson and Rashad Fenton have been seeing. And I don't know if they're still there yet. I mean, they did it with Charvarius Ward last year, but they haven't really gotten that point with Sneed. And I think part of it's because, they want to be able to put Sneed where they need him. And sometimes that's on the inside and sometimes on the outside. And I think that adding that, dynamic to then traveling with Diggs might just mean too many mismatches that Spags doesn't want to create and Dave Merritt doesn't want to create in the secondary. But, hey, there's some short-term and long-term issues here. And, one is, how do you address the loss of Tershawn Wharton? Longer term, maybe it's Danny Shelton. But I don't know if Danny Shelton's the solution against the Buffalo Bills, because this is a team that you're going to see being a lot of substitution packages. And certainly that means probably keeping more pass rushers in. We saw even yesterday, a lot of looks with, especially after Wharton went down, Malik Herring kicking inside. He's typically an edge rusher. Him kicking inside, Chris Jones even on the outside. They did some of those things where, you may see an edge rusher inside to give them more of a ability to rush the quarterback and keep Allen in the pocket and keep him in check rather than worrying about the run. And then you're right. I mean, the secondary is a wild card for this team. The one thing that I think you can definitely say has been a plus, though, for this secondary with Watson in particular, the guy seems to have a short memory. I mean, he's done a really good job of putting bad plays behind him. He got beat a couple of times on Monday night, but you didn't see that affect him on the very next play. I mean, and with young guys, that's a good sign. I mean, you're going to get inconsistent play from rookies. You know that. But what defensive coaches hate to see is a rookie make a mistake that causes him to make a mistake on the next play. And you haven't seen Jalen Watson do that. And that's what I've been pretty impressed with.
Yeah, I have as well. And it allows him to settle into a role. What we saw from L'Jarius Sneed last night was about 40%, 60%. Corner at 22 snaps on the outside, slot at 32. I think maybe we're not going to get into the play today, folks. Chris Jones did produce a turnover. We're not going to discuss that anymore because of everything that happened. But there was another play that produced a turnover that was ruled a fumble out of bounds that I think maybe was the most significant play that didn't really amount to changing the game flow. And that's one where they kind of shadowed or foreshadowed, I should say, what I think they can do here. And that was L'Jarius Sneed dropping to a high safety role by himself, coming downhill and making that hit on Adams to loose the ball there. Is that something that maybe they're just getting in the practice swing of to display against Josh Allen and the Bills to really try to confuse Allen?
Yeah, I could definitely see that. I mean, and it may very well be that they've got some wrinkles up their sleeve just for this that we haven't seen yet, or maybe we've seen selectively. Because the one thing I'm not sure that we've really seen in great detail is, moving these guys around, especially Justin Reed, and finding some different ways to put him in different spots so that, you don't know where the pressure's coming from. You don't know where the coverage is going to be. You kind of disguise things a little bit based on how you move some pieces around. I think that, where the Chiefs have been their most effective has really best been as far as disguising their blitzes and that kind of thing goes. But I don't think that this defense has reached a point where it has been the last few years where the question is, where's Tyrann Mathieu? That's the guy that you have to account for. Who's the guy on this defense right now that teams are trying to account for and saying, hey, make sure that this guy doesn't blow up the play? I'm not sure who that is yet. I mean, if anything, I think it might be Nick Bolton is the guy that most teams are most concerned about and making sure that he's not, set to blow something up, especially at the line of scrimmage. But I don't know if we've seen that with Reed yet, but this could be the game, because you're right. I mean, this would be a great Spags and Dave Merritt kind of a game where maybe Snead and Reed kind of control two sides of the field, and you do move them both around a little bit to just create the confusion so that Josh Allen doesn't know what's coming his way.
There was one PBU produced by the Chiefs defense last night, and it was a hairline. I'll say that. Juan Thornhill produced that while nearly getting beat as well. Is that the kind of game that we're in for against the Bills, that you're going to gamble and you might be right on that hairy edge?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think this is going to be a track meet. I fully believe that the winner of this game is going to score at least 38 points. I think it's definitely going to take that to win. I mean, not that we couldn't see a blowout. Maybe Buffalo comes in here and is high tuned and wants payback, and it's 38-17, and the Chiefs are never in it. But I think it's going to be a track meet, and yeah, you're going to see that. I mean, especially now that that's on tape. I mean, Buffalo's going to take a look at some of those things that the Raiders did that worked, especially with the defensive penalties and the deep plays to Adams, because those were very reminiscent of some of the things that Buffalo did last year to great success against the Chiefs defense.
Got to get your head around, folks. I'm just saying it. There's no other way around it. That said, I'm not going to give a prediction yet. It's early in the week. Do you feel like putting anything out there into the universe yet?
I'm still chewing on it as well. I mean, my score that I'm most right now mulling in my head, like I said, because I expect it's going to be a close track meet, 38-35. I'm not quite ready to decide which way it's going to go. I've got some questions this week I still need to get answered.
Yeah, I do as well. I will say this. I don't think it comes down to 13 seconds. I think it's more like 30 seconds. So a nice, relaxed ball game, folks. It'll be fine. I like your numbers so far, though. That's in my head. Tomorrow, we're going to get Joe Marino here from Locked On Bills. Don't miss that. Me and Chris might both talk to him because Joe's got a lot to say. And then you will hear my prediction on Friday along with Chris Clark. Matt, thanks for your time and giving us your insight.
Always a pleasure, Ryan. Take care, everybody.
Have a good day, everyone. We'll talk to you tomorrow.